This is Ginkgo biloba, Maidenhair Tree, and it's a beautiful deciduous tree native to China and has very distinctive leaves. You'll see the close-up in a minute, and there's not really any leaf shape that I've ever seen on a tree that's quite like this. So that's one of the unique things. And in the wind, the leaves have a really interesting effect in how the wind moves them. Also, very well known for its fall color, intense yellow, which you'll see in just a moment, and reliably strong every year. And with a winter day or fall day and the blue sky behind it, it's really something to behold. So these are very striking, especially as they get larger when they go into their fall color. And the larger green ones you're seeing here are street trees in Pleasanton, California, where I live. So we're in Northern California in an inland valley where in the winter it gets regularly in the 20s Fahrenheit, and in the summer it's in 90 to the hundreds, low hundreds on a regular basis. And we also have very low humidity here. It's in between 15 and 20% humidity much of the summer. And so we have very dry air. And so just consider that whenever I'm describing my experience with these trees. So the ones you're looking at here, they're probably between 40 and 50 years old as street trees. And the soil they're in is a heavy clay with rocks embedded in it, and these trees have not seemed to be adversely affected by that at all. They've handled it just fine. The growth rate of Ginkgo biloba is slow, generally a foot per year. Might be a little faster depending on your conditions, but I would say if you're as arid as we are, you're probably going to be on the slower side of that scale than on the faster side. I think if you had deep, rich soil, good amounts of summer water and nutrients, then you're probably going to be as high as 2 to 3 feet of growth per year. But for most other folks, it's going to be slower. And when you're considering in design what tree to use, that usually factors in strongly, at least it does for my design and for our clients, is we're not the most patient people in the world. So getting a tree that starts off 7 to 9 feet tall and only grows a foot a year, and they're quite sparse, by the way. They can be a little gangly when they're young. So the first 5 years or so of this tree can be kind of disappointing, and if you're going to use it with the idea that it eventually gets large the way you see here, then you've got to leave it space to do that. But meanwhile, while you're waiting, there's not a lot going on there. So as much as I like this tree and how it turns out, I would tell you that from a design perspective, I don't use it a lot because of those reasons I already mentioned. I still think it's a really beautiful, clean tree as trees go. It doesn't have a flower that's messy if you buy one of the male hybrids, and some of those are Autumn Gold, Fairmount, Princeton Century, and Saratoga, and you can look those up and see what's available in your area. But apparently those are male hybrids or clones that are used because the females have a smelly fruit or flower. So make sure you get a named variety so it doesn't have that if you're looking for this tree. So again, fairly upright as you can see here. Interesting here, this one does not, and the ones in this whole street tree planting do not have single leaders. You see how it has a broad head on top? It's still about twice the height compared to the width, but the top does not have a central leader, and yet they're still fairly vertical in their habit of growth. So that's what I can tell you. They're deep rooted, which is nice, so they do work well as a lawn tree or as a street tree. And I just think the growth rate has to be considered. It's probably the biggest limiting factor or factor to be considering when you're selecting a tree, is how quickly do I want a desired effect, and then when it does mature, did I leave it room to do that? And that is Ginkgo biloba, Maidenhair Tree. Nice one to check out if you have the right circumstance for it, because it certainly has a great fall show.